With the hands I used to eat my breakfast, I held the body of a lifeless newborn. I sweep the kitchen floor in the same motion used to clean and dispose of bullets and brain matter. I teach my children to drive as I envision the limbs of young adults scattered across the highway. These are examples of the ghosts that could haunt a first responder throughout their everyday life. A gunshot can bring back the horror of a shooting. The slosh of a rain puddle can surface the memory of pools of blood. Firefighter Captain Brian Warta, yes, my father, recalls a call that haunts him to this day. Arriving on a cold, foggy night to a call that was just supposed to be in the car in the ditch. I called into an upside-down car that had 3 dead young people, later finding another one that had been ejected from the car. The smells and saturation of blood are unforgettable. There is a spiritual sense that feels like they are still around you. Post-traumatic stress disorder, most commonly referred to as PTSD, is a psychological disorder caused by exposure to life-threatening events. PTSD is commonly recognized within war veterans. However, there is a lack of recognition, knowledge, and prevention concerning PTSD within our first responders. In a study as recent as 2015, 85 firefighters died in the line of duty. 101 firefighters, 15.8% additional, lost their lives due to suicide. First responders are on the battlefield for an average of 30 years. They're repeatedly exposed to horrific events, repeatedly. It is because the nature of the horrific events and a blend of the stresses of being a husband and a wife, a mother and a father, that first responders often suffer a cruel form of PTSD. Karen Zavala, a firefighter, wife, and mother of 2, recalls an incident branded into her memory. Performing CPR on a little child whom we all knew would most likely not survive, desperately hoping we could revive her, and then learning the circumstances surrounding her drowning made for the worst day of my career in the fire service. There are not many details about that call that will escape my memory. Although the sight itself was not gruesome, like many other calls, the sight of a lifeless little girl stabs at the heart forever. It's calls such as these that create an imbalance of hormones and chemicals in the brains of first responders. The present-day officers and first responders are unaware of the mental danger that comes with their career. Post-traumatic stress disorder affects responders on 3 different levels: psychological, emotional, and spiritual, as well as the impact on the family. And awareness and education must be reinforced in order for this worldwide crisis to be prevented. For one to truly understand the effects of PTSD, there must be an understanding of the science behind the brain. When the body is under exposure to life-threatening events, or CI stressors, the stress response system in the brain is triggered. The 3 major parts of your body that control your stress response are your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal glands. When stress is triggered, nerve signals are sent to your adrenal glands to produce adrenaline, therefore causing blood sugar and heart rate to increase. Once the hypothalamus is triggered, it puts out signals to the pituitary gland, which stimulates the adrenal cortex to produce cortisol. The Hormone Health Network states, cortisol can help control blood sugar levels, regulate metabolism, help reduce inflammation, and assist with memory formation. The levels of cortisol found in the body is one of the main factors that can predict, prescribe, and regulate PTSD. While cortisol is vital to our everyday functioning, high levels of cortisol may weaken the immune system, kill cells in the hippocampus, slow down the production of brain cells, and studies have proven that an overproduction of cortisol can also result in depression. While the average person may only experience high levels of cortisol a handful of times in their lives, first responders encounter high levels of cortisol on a daily basis. The imbalance of cortisol found in PTSD victims of today replicate the victims of the Holocaust, abused individuals, and traumatic brain injury patients. I'm going to repeat that. Our first responders are walking around with hormone levels of cortisol that replicate traumatic brain injury patients, victims of the Holocaust, and abused individuals. Once the damage has occurred to the individual mentally, the emotional symptoms begin to penetrate through their everyday lives. According to the DSM-IV, a patient may be diagnosed with PTSD if he suffers from symptoms from one of the three categories: reminders of the occurrence, activation, and deactivation. The psychological and emotional symptoms must occur within a month of the incident and last for approximately 2 days. These symptoms can be physical, such as hyperarousal, increase in blood pressure, respiration, heart rate, insomnia, and difficulty with the regularity of the metabolism. Emotional symptoms are often far less recognizable and can accumulate into severe physical damage to the brain. Some of these symptoms may include depression, anxiety, nightmares, flashbacks, withdrawal, and numbing. Victims of PTSD often develop a fear of their own emotions and adverse social interactions. The accumulation of stresses on the brain without relief creates a fear of the first responder towards their own brain. Natalie Harris, a young female paramedic, states, "I'd be crying and crying, I couldn't control it. And I didn't know why, but I wished I had a broken leg. If I could have just had something that was fixable and explainable, then my recovery would have been a lot easier. Suicide was my only option to get away from the terror within my mind." To assume post-traumatic stress disorder simply affects the individuals at hand would be a sheer state of ignorance. A firefighter, paramedic, or police officer goes into the battlefield every day only to return home to their families, wounded, scarred, and traumatized. Often the emotional wounds are handed into the hands of the family. The average additional rate for divorce across the occupations is 17%. That is 17% plus the average divorce rate. Police officers have an average rate of 14.5%, with firefighters with the leading 32.1%. Divorce is simply one of the factors that can affect the family of a PTSD victim. Violence, isolation, substance abuse, and memory loss often fill the households, creating an environment of emotional trauma for the family. Being the daughter of a first responder, I have witnessed this firsthand. I cannot begin to describe the frustration and pain I felt as a young teen when my dad didn't remember what I told him. He didn't remember when I told him I set a new record for my mile time, or when I asked to go to a friend's house. I'd find myself talking with my dad and it didn't feel like he was present in the moment. My senior year of high school, my parents separated because some of the effects of PTSD. It wasn't until I was 17 years old I was better able to understand the effects that PTSD had on my father. It wasn't that he didn't hear me, it wasn't that he didn't care. It was that he simply could not retain all the information his brain was getting on a daily basis because of his job. According to the Society of Occupational Medicine, mental health problems prior to the traumatic event and weak social support increase the risk of PTSD. If the family of the first responder is educated about PTSD, the family can be there as a support system for the first responder. Much to my dismay, many of the myths concerning PTSD lie within the church. Often Christians develop this false ideology that living a prayer-filled, Christ-centered life, mental illness is never an issue. Mental illness is not simply an emotional disability, folks, but rather a physical condition within our brains. I'm the daughter of a first responder who suffered PTSD. As the issue of mental illness began to consume my home life, I was shocked to see the response from Christians, friends, family, and the church. To state that because one is a Christian, they are excluded from any form of physical injury, such as a heart attack, broken bone, or disease, would be outrageous and naive. However, within the church, we continue to deny the scientific, proven physicalities of mental illness. To live in disbelief and denial of mental illness is to deny the anatomy of God's creation. As we look deeper into the beliefs of the denominations, we find that many churches' doctrine supports the welfare of workers and the unity of family. The Orthodox agrees with biblical passages about the treatment of workers, such as Jeremiah 22:13. Woe to him who treats his workers unjustly. Concerning the safety of workers, the Catholic denomination claims, work is more than a way to make a living, it's a form of continuing participation in God's creation. Workers have rights to decent work, just wages, safe working conditions, unionized disability protection, retirement security, and economic initiative. The Methodist denomination states, "We support the measures that ensure the physical and mental safety of workers that provide for the equitable division of products and services. The evangelical denomination supports the practice of medicine and the healing of disease. We believe in the Bible doctrine of divine healing and urge our people to seek and offer the prayer of faith for the healing of the sick. We also believe God heals through the means of medical science." How can we, the people who are served by these heroes, who sacrifice their mental and physical health daily, take preventative measures to save their lives? There are 3 steps towards the dissolvement of this worldwide crisis: education, diagnosis, and treatment. An anonymous quote states, "If you look at the man hours, or the hours you've been trained both through individual training records and the daily supervision, and then the CEUs for our licenses, the training that we've had for behavioral health is really nothing. 0. Mental health education and awareness should be a requirement for first responders as a building block, laying a foundation for a knowledge surrounding a disorder that the first responders will face at some point in their career. In various law enforcement agencies, officers are required to sign a form saying that they recognize the heightened risk for divorce. What would be at risk for our departments to do that with PTSD? Could a course be incorporated within the police and fire academies teaching the science behind the brain? It's crucial that the ill stigma concerning mental health is diminished beginning the first day of a first responder's training. PTSD is often referred to as a soft disorder, or a disorder lacking an objective biological path to diagnosis. Accurately diagnosing PTSD has become known as a shot in the dark. However, recent advancements and investments in technology have paved a way for our generation to monitor PTSD with a relative accuracy. The MEG machine is a brain imaging method which can be compared to a CT scan and an MRI. Unlike the CT scan and the MRI, the MEG machine measures the electric activity in the brain by milliseconds, giving the machine a 90% accuracy rate by picking up signals other tests miss. The MEG is not the only piece of technology that can be used to monitor PTSD. Currently, the Pentagon is in the process of developing a brain chip to treat and monitor PTSD. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, wants to pioneer a form of technology in which a chip lies deep within the soft tissue of the brain and monitors, records, and possibly treats abnormalities of brain activity that leads to PTSD. The chip will use a technique called deep brain stimulation. Just as a defibrillator sends electricity to a heart after cardiac arrest, the chip will put out low doses of electricity. Ethics continue to play into this as well. How much can we monitor and treat the brain before we strip away every essence of humanity? Is the life of a first responder so heavy at risk that a chip should be inserted into their brain? Would one life of a first responder be worth it, much less hundreds? These are the questions our generation must face as we weigh the benefits of technology and frailty of humanity within first responders. In the late 1980s, Francine Shapiro created a form of therapy called EDMR, Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing. Certified therapists lead EDMR through a series of lateral eye movements. Bilateral eye movements can be stimulated through sound and touch. How the EDMR machine works is it has a beep that goes back and forth in a headset on the victim's head. What this does is it creates a connection between the right and left brain, has them communicate. So when the patient is recalling the emotional traumatic memory, the left and right brain can communicate to each other, therefore creating a healing. Steven Siller states, precise and careful use of these procedures can lead to a safe processing of memories, such as that of negative thoughts, and emotions seem to disappear. A local anonymous source states, we joke around and pretend it doesn't bother us. You don't want to be the one that's going to counseling. Everyone will call you a wimp. Leadership throughout the departments of the first responders is critical towards the recovery process. The state of Florida is currently trying to pass a law that would provide compensation benefits to first responders suffering PTSD. Senate Bill 516 would amend the existing law that has prevented first responders from claiming mental injuries under workers' compensation. After spending hours carrying out and tagging 49 dead bodies during the 2016 Orlando shooting, a police officer reported to the press that he was suffering PTSD. The officer was denied workers' compensation, and the issue made headlines because Florida law finds the nature of a first responder's work to be a part of the job. If passed, this law will go into effect July 1st, 2017. The United States of America has failed to recognize the grasp that the cold hand of PTSD could have on the nation, economy, and healthcare system. In comparison to other nations such as Canada, England, Sweden, the United States healthcare system is falling behind in the race against PTSD. England has continued to fund studies on the London ambulance service and discovered that CI stressors were the most prominent factor of sickness. 15% of workers possessed symptoms that were characterized as PTSD. Next month, a group of first responders and families in Canada plan to call for a national strategy to help Canadian first responders suffering PTSD. In 2016, Ontario revamped its legislation to recognize PTSD as a workplace injury. The United States has yet to presume such legislation. Our nation was founded on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Therefore, I believe we should be the first country to cross the finish line in solving the healthcare epidemic of PTSD within our first responders. 10 years from now, we will still wonder what happened. What did we miss? Lou Lewis, the mother of local firefighter Billy Lewis, states, Billy Lewis was a firefighter and paramedic in Live Oak, Sutter County, Yuba City, and Sacramento areas. Lewis began serving as a teenager until his passion took his life at the age of 43. Billy took the steps to recover. He sought help from a counselor and even attended a retreat for people diagnosed with PTSD. Billy was adored throughout our community, as an astonishing 450 people attended his memorial. I would like to dedicate my senior project in memory of Billy Lewis. In his honor, I hope that we will raise an awareness of PTSD throughout first responders. First responders are their brother's keeper, as Lou Lewis states. I will continue to spread awareness concerning PTSD within first responders. Without the help of doctors, the research of my mother, and God's sheer grace, my father may not have been here to watch me receive my diploma on June 2nd. My senior project resulted in many late nights, tears burning my eyes as I stared into my computer screen and read the symptoms that my father had or was dealing with. No hero deserves to pay the price of living in fear of their own brain. God has given us the tools and the technology to conquer this through science, technology, and awareness. Stand with me, spread awareness, and let's give back to those who so willingly give to us. Next time you see a first responder, veteran, or abuse victim, shake their hand with the recognition that some of the most vile wounds lie within the human body. Today, I'm pleased to say that we have many family members and first responders themselves. So if you're a family member of a first responder or a first responder, would you please stand? Let's give these folks a round of applause. I'd like to thank them for all that they do and sacrifice for our community. At this time, my assistants will pass out brochures on the back, which have sites and organizations that you can contact to get help for PTSD. At this time, I will take any questions.